There are so many conspiracy theorists now. The internet is sort of on fire over this one. So it's probably most important at this point that I bring in Ben Hansen, because he is the host of Discovery Plus's UFO Witness, and he's been following this case closely. Okay, so Ben, when we talked before, we didn't know a bunch of this other stuff, like the broken leg that was hanging in an awkward position and the eyelashes, and we took video, yet no one has seen the video. This business about police coming to the house afterwards with details like 2 sergeants, a couple of investigators asking to set up cameras, and then the cops say, no, we never did go back. I got to get your take. What do you make of all of this?
Well, it is one of the most bizarre cases, not the most bizarre that I've investigated. You summarize it very well. It starts out with some corroborating evidence. You have a 911 call. You have police taking the family seriously. In fact, I think they would still tell you today that most of them felt they were telling the truth. They seemed legitimately frightened. But when you start digging into it, they start to have some inconsistencies. They told George Knapp, local Vegas reporter, that they had video, which you said, of course, was never mentioned in the beginning. The footprints, you don't think to take, photos of those. And it starts to kind of unravel. And then all of a sudden the family stops responding. Now, the media has descended. They've found the location. They're, I'm sure, getting bombarded. And it's natural. Maybe you'd want to go into hiding. But at this point, you'd also hope they'd want to just kind of clear the air once and for all. It's very odd because we've looked at it every angle we possibly can, except for maybe doing voice stress analysis. When you played the 911 tape, I was thinking maybe we should do that too.
Well, there's time because we're not getting very far on this, although you have gotten farther than it seems the police have. I'm a little disconcerted with the report that the family said police came a couple days later and did this whole investigation, and the Metro Vegas police have said, no, we didn't. Can you tell me if you've investigated or reported on or witnessed any other incidents of these strange, X-Files-like incidents where people arrive to investigate that apparently don't exist?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would say that we do have pretty convincing evidence that has happened in the past, maybe the 50s and 60s. I think it's really difficult to find such a situation now because you could find this type of story in the tabloids. And then if there was a secret keeping group, who would honestly believe them and take it as true if they came out and just said their story like they've been doing, and there's no need to cover it up. So I do think that's kind of more in the realm of conspiracy. However, they had photos supposedly, and they released photos of the police being there. That should be easy to verify, but our sources are telling us nothing officially. No one officially went out to follow up. And so if it's not them and they're seeing these SUVs driving around blacked out, it could be other people, media, onlookers, just trying to figure out what's happened. But I would say it's a very unlikely situation that we have like a shadow agency there.
Well, that's what I would say. But for the fact that last week Ben Grush came forward, and for those who don't know who Ben Grush is, you probably will soon. He's a former Air Force veteran, longtime employee of the Pentagon. He's a whistleblower. He's telling Congress enough is enough. There is a secret program that the government runs to recapture crashed UFOs, suggesting even non-human pilots have been recovered as well. That's a picture of him. It's being taken seriously. Congressmen have responded. They're asking for hearings. So it feels like we're getting some traction with this fella. Whether or not the evidence that he saw was given to him erroneously or whether this is all true, I'm not going to weigh in on that. The family said they saw blue-green sparks before the crash in their backyard and then the strange description of the aliens. And the American Meteor Society shows multiple reports of something sighted right around the same time as far away as California. I get it. If it's a meteor, that would make perfect sense, but for the fact there's this backyard business and the alien beings business. How do you square those two reports?
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's exactly the point here, is that let's say you had an elaborate hoax you were wanting to perpetrate, right? And what are you going to sit around and wait for a meteor or some event to kind of spark that off, literally, so that you start perpetrating your hoax? right? That to me doesn't make sense. We have pretty much determined, I think there was a meteor. That's what they're seeing. We've pulled up, Google Earth images and lined everything up. But it is possible still that something did fly over. Let's say a piece of it landed on their property. Okay, so if we take them at their word, what I really have a hard time with is the descriptions of these beings. You're either making up a hoax or you're not. I don't really see anybody, mistaking, let's say, a coyote or some, other animal in the backyard as an 8 to 10 foot,
Right.
tall creature.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially
So,
with that
I mean, that's the
description,
real
with the
problem.
big
They're either
eyes,
making up or not.
right? The big eyes, the glossy eyes, the mouth, the broken leg. Yeah, I mean, 8 to 10 feet. I want to bring someone else into our conversation, Ben, if I can. So stand by for a second. Mark Berry is a retired Las Vegas Metro Police officer who's also been working with Ben on investigating this case. So, Mark, you're the perfect person to ask about this piece that involves the so-called, Metro Vegas police going to the house days after this crash. A couple of sergeants, couple of investigators, the family reports, and they didn't exist. The Metro Police are saying we didn't. Do we believe the Metro Police when they say they didn't, or do we think that somebody did show up dressed as them?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Metro's a great organization. Their officers are some of the most finely trained officers in the world. And, they handled it. In my book, they pretty much did what they could as patrol officers. The fact that the family said some sergeants came in afterwards and put up cameras, that's not protocol in any kind of unit within the department. We're not going to do that. Basically, when you show up on scene, once you gain that real estate, you're not going to give it up. So if you need to call in criminalistics, if you need to call in detectives, if you need to call in another unit, you're going to do that, but you're going to remain on scene, probably, start a perimeter or something like that. These officers, I'm not going to discount the story. They had no reason not to believe other than, it's pretty out there when you hear about the descriptions, but they're there to look and get to the bottom of it as fast as they can. And they did go out back. They did see some, I guess you could call it evidence, but, I also have dove into this a little bit besides talking to the officers involved. I used some of my air assets and were able to look out in the back of the yard and see the circular impressions that they were talking about. And in that backyard, there's a number of trailers, a number of flatbeds, and the circular impressions are very indicative of rear wheel tracking. So if you drive through a puddle, your front tires make a mark, your back tires are going to make another mark. So you're going to have two separate circles. And if you can see, it's the same depth and the same width of the other vehicle tracks that are going around that shed. So to me, it looks very indicative of a vehicle track, and those are back rear wheel tracking.
Well, that would be a logical explanation for the naysayers to say there's always an explanation for this. So thank you for bringing that part up about those mysterious circles in the backyard. But Mark, you also spent some time staked out. Like, you staked out to see if you could get a read on this family. The family has ghosted everybody. They're not responding to interviewers that they made appointments with. They're not responding to telephone calls. I don't even know if they're in the house anymore. But what was your read when you were parked out front for hours and hours?
Yeah, so I'll admit I drive a black SUV.
Okay, there you go. We can explain the black SUVs away now.
I do not wear black government-issued sunglasses, so there's a little difference there. I have talked to some of the neighbors. I have been able to confirm noise, the big giant boom that the Ring camera had caught at one part of the valley. But there's some more issues with the backyard. Again, I don't want to discount what they're saying, but the house has been dark. There has been no movement in and out other than onlookers going, by the house real slow, taking pictures. As far as movement in the house itself or in the rear, the backyard, or even in the trailers, it's been dark. And it's been dark for the last few days. So I'm sure that they may have left town. But I don't know. They may just be laying low.
And Mark, I'll tell you, there's a perfectly good explanation. They're freaking out over all this attention, and so they amscrade, or as others would say, they've been taken by the government and they're being hidden away and interrogated. I mean, this is what the internet's lighting up about. So can I ask you, Ben, about, I learned this about you today and I thought it was awesome. You have spent years debunking these hoaxes. You actually have developed a hoaxer profiling system, and you have 5 types. Can you run through those 5 types real quickly for me?
Sure. I like to think of it as verifying. I hosted a show called Fact or Fake for many years, and that was kind of where I developed all this. So one of them I call clinical con artists, and these are more like sociopaths, and they do it usually for fame or fortune. They usually have like a diagnosable personality disorder. Then you have legendizers. Now, if I were to categorize where I think this is heading, it's often possible that people have legitimate experiences, something that scares them, they believe is real, but they also are frustrated they're not being believed, and they start making up things or legendizing, embellishing the facts. And we see maybe a little of that happening here. Then we have commercial campaigners. These are the people you see making viral videos online, doing it, to showcase their skills or promote a product. Self-amused pranksters. These ones really bother me because these guys do it just for the fun of pulling something off on somebody else. And then the final category is disinformation agents. And we've talked about that. This came out at a time where David Grush was giving his testimony, and you have a lot of people talking about UFOs. So the conspiracy is, well, what if some government shadow group comes out and tries to kind of mollify the hysteria by putting out something that could be later described or found to be a prank, right? And so you put out this outlandish story and sort of ridicule and make fun of those who are now starting to believe what's coming out in disclosure. I really think that is not very plausible in this situation, but some people do.
It's interesting. The police department felt they were legitimately scared, didn't think they were lying, and you'd have to be really, really good at assuming a meteor's coming to get your ruse all together for that very moment, so that it aligns with the meteor coming by. Guys, thank you for this. Ben Hansen, Mark Berry, really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.